Hello, good morning, good afternoon. These are my initial impressions on the Yokohama A052 tyre, which I've said 1,000 times before I was never going to buy. But here we are with a set of them on my EK4 Honda Civic, a car you probably know if you're watching this video, or if you found this just by some random YouTube way. There's plenty of videos of me driving it over the last 10 years on my YouTube channel. Use it for hill climbs, sprint days, and things like that. I've driven on most tyres, and most recently I've been driving on what we'll call the Super 200 treadwear, the Holy Trinity. So your Bridgestone RE71 RS, Nankang CRS V2, and now these Yokohama A052s. I've driven them on a wet hill climb, dry hill climb, and both in damp conditions and dry conditions in a sprint environment out at East Sale. So I haven't tried to do 20-minute sessions at a track day on them, but that's not really what I do in my car. So if that's what you're going to do, you probably shouldn't be looking at this tyre anyway, which we'll get to. First time I drove on this car was on a wet hill climb, and realistically it was incredible. It is, compared to the Nankang CRS, which is just a dog in the wet, which I thought it was okay until I put these on and realized actually that Nankang CRS sucks in the wet, both when it's cold, when it's warm. It's not a very good wet tire on the track. It was okay on the road, but on the track it was horrible. So first things, wet starts from a hill climb, wet confidence through corners. It was the A052 is just very confidence inspiring, if we use buzzwords like that. There was no fear of the rear just letting go. The car would kind of talk to you, the tyre would provide some feedback, and then there might be some slippage, but you knew about it before the car was turning around or before the car just slid sideways. So that was a huge benefit. Particularly, Bryant Park is a hill climb that's quite wet and quite cold for the majority of the year, so that was a huge plus for this tyre there. Once again, in wet and damp conditions at East Sale last weekend's, same kind of confidence, the same kind of grip was expected. I don't think the rear even stepped out at all. It was, quite nice and good to drive on. Very happy with the wet conditions on this tyre. That then turns into the cold driving of this tyre, which with the Nankang I had some issues with starts from hill climbs. The tyre that just, there was no real grip from the start line. You would spin tyres. First one or two corners, you were always expecting to catch the car as the rear moved around too much. There is none of that with this tyre. Even if you do spin off the line, you still feel like you're moving forward rather than just spinning and going nowhere. And the first couple of corners, particularly at Bryant Park once again, which is where I've driven this car 2 out of the 3 times, where I've driven this tyre 2 out of the 3 times. Huge amount of confidence. So I think in that kind of aligns with the reviews, or the main review, the Grassroots Motorsport tyre, in that this tyre, if you are doing, the Americans call it autocross, but anything where you're from a standing start and there is no chance to warm up the tyre, this tyre is really good for that. So the times, considering the conditions at let's say the dry hill climb, a couple of weeks ago on the figure 8 layout, we're within half a second of where I expected to be, considering how cold, lack of track temperature, and how windy it was. So coming back up the straight, I don't have the data on how much it was impacting, but just on the amount of revs we were getting and where we're ending up in terms of speed on the speedo, we were a bit slower down the straight. So happy to be there, and the whole time I was driving, the car was easy to drive, no rash movements, no stepping out of the rear. I do probably prefer a car that tends to understeer rather than oversteer. And there wasn't excessive understeer either, because there's a fair amount of grip from this little 205 50/15 tyre. At East Sale last weekend's, straight out of the box. So that's actually, I'll backtrack a little bit. That's a short sprint circuit laid out on a RAF base, so a Air Force base. Each lap is 55, 56 seconds, so it's a reasonably short run, and you do three laps per session, which is what a sprint is. Probably realistic of what time attack should be, but that's a whole other story. Time attack enduro that we have over here in Australia. But I was going from the pit exit, going flat out, and there was grip straight away. First corners on the out lap, and then bang into the first lap, second lap, and even the third lap. The amount of grip was consistent. It was always there. You could really lean on the tyre. There was a bit more tyre noise than what you get, say, from an A050. I can't remember tyre noise with the CRSs. Actually, CRSs and the RE71s I've driven there. I'll have to look back on the amount of noise, but noise didn't equate to lack of grip. The car still gripped, the tyre still gripped, and you were able to push through the corners and accelerate quite early. And I went a good half second than I had before previously. And I think that would have been on CRS from earlier in the year when it was a little bit warm. Actually, it was very warm. So what does that mean? Different conditions, but as expected, this tyre was really good straight out of the box from the pits, and provided consistent three short laps. Obviously, there's plenty of people that have experience with this tyre where they've tried to do 5 or 6 laps on a circuit and have blown the thing apart, have worn it out very quickly. That's not what I do in this car. And even if I was doing a sprint session at say Winton or Phillip Island, whatever it may be, Sandown even, I'm only doing 2 or 3 laps in a row. I've got too much mechanical sympathy for this car and for tyres to think that doing 6 laps in a row is the right way to get one single fast lap. It's not, and anyone who thinks it is probably needs to get better at driving. But anyway, that's my thoughts and my experiences with the tyre. This is a rear tyre because the fronts are covered in brake dust and I didn't really want to pull them off. But look, hold on, bit of outside tyre wear, but nothing really special. I haven't done a huge amount of laps anyway. If we do a really scientific finger on the wear indicator, I don't know, it feels about the same, front and rear. I don't expect these tyres to last forever if I start doing a heap of laps in a row. I don't think that's going to happen, particularly this year. I've pretty much got 2 hill climbs, and then life and Christmas gets in the way for the rest of the year. Overall, good tyre and exactly what I expected from it. And it hasn't self-combusted like, there's plenty of people putting that fear into you. So should you choose this tyre? Yes, if you're in a cold climate or somewhere cold, you're driving in the wet, it's a bit damp. I would expect if the air and surface temperatures are a lot higher, I've really only driven this car in 14, 15 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in American terms. So I haven't driven it on 25, 30 degree day. I'd expect it to get slipperier a lot quicker and fall off a lot quicker, but in the conditions I've driven it in, I haven't noticed it. Couple of negatives with the tyre. The first one being it's the most expensive of the Super 200s. I will mention Traction gave me a little bit of a discount on these ones, which was nice. I've probably spent a lot of money at that place over the years anyway, so nice to get a little bit back. But I think it was still, even with a discount, more expensive than it was by about $100. So yeah, these are big negative in that these are more expensive, but A050s are also the most expensive semi. They're also the best as well. So it's kind of par for course. You're buying Yokohamas, you're going to pay the most for them in Australia. The sizing, this is a 205/50/15. The 225 is a tall 50, which I've mentioned many times before. I think is too tall on this car unless it's on a 15/9 inch rim. We're running 15/8s just to meet the class ruling that I run for hill climbs at the moment. Maybe if you had a bit more power, the taller tyre wouldn't cause you any issues, but we don't have many because we're only with B16 at the moment. At the moment, forever. B16 forever. Actually, a really trivial negative, the sidewall of... Hold on. It's going to make some noise, but the sidewall of an Ankang CRS looks heaps better. It's a lot smoother than, all this. Obviously, we've got silly stencils on the wall on the sidewall at the moment, but the Nankang sidewall looks heaps better than the A052 sidewall. Sorry, I get mixing my words up. Does it really matter? Not at all, really, but that's just something I thought I'd mention because I had a tyre to show you there. So yeah, I'll drive on this tyre. Well, actually, the reason why I bought this tyre, which was, we step back, was because I wanted better starts for hill climbs, particularly for the Australian Hill Climb Championship in 6 weeks. And I didn't want to buy A050 softs because I didn't want to... I'm still running with that one set of tyres, one set of wheel kind of philosophy, which may be a little bit slower, but it's a lot easier. And it's nice to drive other tyres than A050. It's nice to see what else is out on the market, how good they are, whether what people have said about tyres is true or not. I don't know if you've noticed, there's very few people I trust because there's plenty of people saying certain tyres are really fast, and then you'll go ask what else they've driven on, and they'll say, oh, I've driven on that tyre and RS4s. And you're like, well, of course, if you're comparing it to an RS4, any tyre is realistically pretty quick. So, yeah, should I do a summary? Of the 3 tyres, RE71s, CRSs and A052, now that I've driven on all 3 of them, I would probably say for what I do, it's either RE71 or the A052, depending on how long the A052 actually lasts for. Just because of the cold handling characteristics of the CRS. It doesn't work for the type of driving I do, both the hill climbs and the very short sprints, because it takes too long to heat up. But there's plenty of people, and even at Honda Nationals, which I didn't go to on the weekend, but I hear Tony and those guys did a really good job of it. I'll be there next year. There's plenty of guys banging out really fast laps on the CRSs once they get the hang of how a 200 treadwear tyre works, handles. So, I don't know, all these 3 tyres appeal to 3 different people. You've just got or 3 different people, types of drivers and types of cars. So I suppose you just need to find the one that suits what you're doing. But my experience is purely in a very small car with very little power. I would hate to be in a big BMW or something with a lot of power trying to manage these tyres, because I could see them falling off very quickly, which there's plenty of examples of that. And I think you'd then just go, well, I'm just going to buy another set of wheels and run A050 mediums if you're just doing track days and things like that, or, softs if you're doing hill climbs and the like. So, yeah, better tyre than I thought. Who knows if I'll buy another set. Hopefully I don't need to buy another set until sometime next year. So that's it. Thanks.